All right. Thank you for joining us on this afternoon. A few days ago, I posted a comment on Facebook mentioning dating ministers, and I asked why were so many people afraid or refused to date ministers. And I posed the question, would you date a minister? So that topic stayed with me, and I only thought of one person that I could talk with and expound on this conversation on a live, and he is a native of Clarksdale, Mississippi, and is the seventh born of seven children. He received his early education in the Clarksdale public school system and graduated from Clarksdale High School in 1980. His post-secondary education and achievement includes an Associate of Art in Business Administration from Coahoma Junior College, a Bachelor's of Business Administration from Lemoyne Owens College, a Master of Religious Arts in Christian Education from Jacksonville Theological Seminary, and a Doctor of Religious Art in Christian Psychology Counseling, also from Jacksonville Theological Seminary. And he also has further studied at Belhaven University towards an MBA. His wide range of occupation experiences includes a counselor, a pastor for 15 years, an administrator, an educator, a mental health professional, a workforce development professional, a consultant, all of which have enabled him to affect positive changes in the lives of many. As a result, he has been featured in several magazines and on radio shows. His proudest achievement is the beautiful legacy of his seven children, five daughters and two sons, and 24 grandchildren. Having experienced several life challenges, the life-changing effects of a divorce following a 21-year marriage, and the tragic death of his 3-month-old grandson. He launched his first entrepreneurial venture as a motivational speaker, life coach, and consultant in an effort to reach out to other individuals recovering from various life changes, tragedies, and circumstances, and who seek success. He is a published author and playwright, and his work include Let's Get Ready for Work, To Me, From Me, With Love Always, Letters to Our Brothers, and Jesus Dropped the Charges. His community involvement includes his membership of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, and he serves as associate minister at the Fountain of Raleigh Fellowship in Raleigh, North Carolina. He is an active volunteer with kidsandcars.org, where he advocates for the safety of children in and around hot cars and frequent Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., to progress the passing of Hot Cars Act, which would mandate auto manufacturers to install sensors in new vehicles to detect the presence of life in rear seats after the ignition has been disengaged and the driver exits the car. He is a thriving model and have modeled for fashion shows in Atlanta, Raleigh, North Carolina, and New York. His hobbies include cooking, baking, writing, bowling, and spending quality time with his family and close friends. I give you no other person than my good friend and my second godfather, Dr. Norman L.V. Collins Sr. How are you doing this afternoon?
Oh, I'm doing well. My God, after all of that, I'm feeling kind of nice.
Okay.
I'm great.
That's good to hear.
Glad to be here today.
Awesome. The question that I posed on Facebook, why are so many people afraid or refuse to date ministers? And would they date a minister? You've been a minister yourself. What are your thoughts on that?
First of all, Brad, I think it's due to various stereotypes, as well as even experiences that some people may have had with ministers in the past. And unfortunately, all ministers get lumped into this category with bad ministers. And so people also have various, shall I say, ideas and indoctrinations that they've had throughout the course of their life. And if this particular minister does not measure up like another minister or whatever, then, there's this comparison. But one thing that I would like to bring out about that is that unfortunately, people don't realize that, ministers are human beings just as everyone else is, right? You know, the scripture says that John was a man sent by God, right? So he was a man who was sent by God to share God's word. So that means he was still a human being, still had all of the natural feelings and emotions, just as everybody else does, still has a propensity to do wrong or to sin, just as everybody else does. You know, I can even recall in the Old Testament where the priest, whenever he got ready to go into the Holy of Holies, he had to make sure that he had atoned for his own sins before he went in, because if he went behind that veil and did not, had not atoned for himself, they had a rope tied around his ankle where they would actually have to snatch him out because nobody else could go behind the Holy of Holies but him. But my point about that is that, you know, ministers are human beings and we are subject to error like everyone else. There's this propensity of people to put ministers on a pedestal that we didn't ask for, you know. And then also along with that is the matter of us allowing them to put us on pedestals, you know, and to humble ourselves such that people would be able to understand that, hey, look, you know, this is a man or this is a woman just as I am, and they have needs as well. It's kind of funny. I remember I was working in Arkansas several years ago, and my wife and I had just had our twins, which our twins were the sixth and the seventh children, right? So this young lady, I was just standing in the office and talking with the administrative assistant, and one of the teachers comes in and she heard us talking about the twins. She said, "Twins? Who has twins?" And so my coworker Linda says, "Well, yeah, Norman's wife just had twins." She said, "Oh my God, I didn't know preachers had sex." I was done. I was totally done. I'm like, really? And God rest her soul. You know, I was like, "Are you serious?" She was like, "No, I just never thought that y'all did that." Okay, well, yeah, we do. You know, so. But that being said, you know, some of those are the reasons that, you know, aside from their own personal experiences, that people have all of these schisms and isms about preachers, you know? And so, again, we don't ask, at least I never did, but most of the time we don't ask for these labels of being this great pumbaa or whatever that you got to bow down to and all. No, it's not even about that. I always tell ministers whenever I've been training associate ministers, you know, to always remain humble, you know, and make sure that you always emphasize the fact that the calling that you have in your life is God's calling on your life, right? But then again, God also understands that you're human. He understands that you're flesh, and therefore there's a need for you to constantly be before God and asking Him to, you know, to cleanse us and to, you know, creating us clean hearts. But again, that's something that every Christian needs to be doing anyway.
Truly, truly,
Yeah.
truly.
Right.
Would you date another minister?
Well, yeah, for a lot of reasons. Number one, number one, and let me just say this: one of my must-haves in dating is a strong spiritual life. Okay. And so, yeah, I mean, you've got to have the, and I think that's perhaps maybe kind of leading maybe into another question, perhaps, but it also has to be someone of my same faith. Okay, because you know, the scripture teaches us to not be unequally yoked, right? And so if I'm trying to go this way and this, you know, and the person I'm dating is trying to go that way, then you know there's going to be a divide, and there never will be a full-blown relationship because we're not able to be on one accord. Right. So yeah, I would date a minister. I mean, there are just, you know, several pluses with that. They would understand, you know, the need when I have to be away for ministerial purposes, understand the need when I need to go in meditation and not feel like I'm leaving them out, but I've got to spend that quality time with God. Understand my physical needs as well. I mean, there's just so many things that would come together in a situation like that. And to be honest, I would prefer to, but at the same time, I'm not limited to that.
I feel you. I feel you. I'm the same way. I would want someone that has a spiritual background. They don't have to be a minister per se,
Right.
but just have a spiritual background on it. I want somebody that knows that it's not going to be Peter that blows a trombone on that great getting up morning.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And then too, I think the other thing with that too is, you know, they also understand the humanity and they understand the need for the support because there come times when I need to be prayed for, and
True.
because they're spiritual, they know that moment where they may be able to say, okay, well, come here, baby, well, come here, let me pray for you, because right now, I see the enemy is trying to do this to you. You see what I'm saying? As opposed to, well, why you always got to be by yourself, and why you always looking like that, and you supposed to be strong, and you supposed to be,
Exactly.
you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
But there again, but don't get me wrong, it's also a mutual thing. I would do that, for my
Yeah.
significant other, even if they weren't quote unquote, again, not a preacher, but they have that spiritual component, right? And
Right.
so they know that I got their back when they're in that low moment. They can just come to me and say, hey, baby, look, I just need you to pray for me because right now I got some issues, or they may be at work, call me, hey, look, I need you to pray real quick because I'm about to snap,
Right. Exactly. Been
But
there. Been there.
yes, definitely.
So, how has dating been for you?
Uh, it's mm, it's been a bit it's been a bit challenging, but not manageable. It has not been to the point where I can't manage it, shall I say. I am very particular in dating, and I always tell anyone that wants to date me, there are basically four things that I gotta have. Number one, that's the spirituality. We must have that, right? Number two, there has to be a strong sense of communication. We need to talk about it. The Bible says, how can two walk together except they agree? We even have to agree to disagree, but we still need to talk about it
There you
rather
go.
than walk away from it, right? And then in addition to that, there is this consistency. I don't need, you to start, giving me, doing things for me at the outset just to get me. And then later on, about 2 months later, all of a sudden the fire's gone out, the log just laying up in the fireplace and ain't nothing going on. You see what I'm saying? There needs to be a strong sense of consistency. And then the fourth one is integrity. Got to have a sense of honesty, not a sense, but you have to have honesty, because honesty is the only way that I'm going to be able to build trust with you,
Right.
you know? And so for me, trying to find that combination has been challenging, you know,
Mhm.
because I said spiritual first because if if the person I'm dating is spiritual, then they know me and they know that there are times when I need to talk. Okay, so there's the communication piece. Then they also will get to know me in such a way that sometimes I don't need you really to say anything. I just need you to listen to me.
There you go. Yeah. Been there.
Yeah,
Been there.
so is that sense of what I call communication, but non-communication. That communication, of course, both talking and listening, but you need to know which one to employ at the
Right.
right time.
Right.
Do I need you to talk or do I need you to listen? Right. And then if I don't ever want to be in a situation where I lead, may not necessarily that we're dating, and they stay over there and I stay over here. I don't want the day to part. I don't want to depart and at the end of the day, we're still mad with each other. We need to talk about it.
Got it.
Yes, and agree to say, okay, well, hey, look, well, right now, doesn't look like we're getting anywhere, and I'm not in a really good place. So why don't we just table this until tomorrow? Okay, cool. You see what I'm saying? But that's an agreement.
Right.
But that has to be communicated. So for me, and I've not had, I must be honest, I haven't had a lot of dates in the first place. But, um, the ones that I have dated understood that about
Hmm.
me. And, we just, I guess at the end of the day, just found that maybe there were some things about each other that weren't quite there, or maybe it wasn't the right time, or what, I don't know. But, you know,
Yeah.
yeah. So we just have to, sometimes I just have to consider that it is what it is and I move on.
And move on. There you go.
Yes,
There you
yes.
go. Do you think that being a minister that you are more empathetic and gentle and patient with the other person, kind of like putting your feelings aside to come accommodate them?
I think that's the kind of person I am anyway. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, I'm the type of person I don't hold grudges against people for really hardly any length of time. Matter of fact, I pray about it. I pray daily. So I'm like, okay, God, because I found out that it's too much energy to hold that, and I'd rather go ahead and deal with it and press on. I'm very empathetic toward people, which I think is one of the reasons why the Lord would use me in ministry anyways, because I'm always trying to understand people and meet people where they are. Most time, even when I introduce myself to folks, I'm not like, okay, well, what's your name? Oh, Reverend Doctor. No, I don't, because I don't have to have the title.
Thank you.
If you, because of the character that I have, the way I talk, the way I approach, and the things that I say, the anointing doesn't need to be shouted out. It just needs to be shown.
Right.
And so I don't have to say, well, I'm Reverend Doctor, da 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 da. I just be. I'm just who I am.
Why do you think that most people have to tell people, well, I'm Bishop so and so, I'm Reverend so and so? Why is that? I've always wondered that.
Well, I think, first of all, I think it depends on their upbringing, number one, because, coming from the deep South, that was just, it was just understood. You Reverend so-and-so, that's who you introduce yourself as, right? But then also, I think it kind of helps individuals, some people, to feel like they're special, as though they are someone, they're a dignitary. It makes them feel like there's a higher plane, that they're on, and they want their respect, And don't get me wrong, I do believe that there are settings where a title is necessary.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, it is. And so, but as long as the Bible teaches, I believe, Romans chapter 12, it says to not think no more highly of yourself than you ought to think. Okay, I think it's Romans 12:3. And so when it said, and basically what they're saying is, you ought to think of yourself as someone, who you ought to think you're special. You ought to think that you're worthy to be loved. You ought to think that, you ought to think good about yourself, right? But don't allow that to don't get your head so big and so blown, in your degree, and blown in the fact that people know you, and blown in the fact that you've got 2,000 members at your church, and you get the big head about it. And then after a while, that's when you enter that level of what I call pedestal level, where you allow people to put you on the pedestal because you got yourself up there, And so again, I think humility has a part right there. So I remember I was pastoring this church once where it was through the week, and I was also the musician at the church too, and we had a funeral, and none of the choir members could make it that day, and the person who was supposed to MC the program couldn't make it that day, so I had to play the piano. I had to do a couple of congregational numbers. I had to preach. Everything except for doing the 2 or 3 minutes of remarks by friends. So I got through doing the sermon. I had to go back down and play the piano while the family's going out. And the cemetery was in the back of the church. So I had to get up from there, go out the back door so that I could meet them at the cemetery and deposit the body. Well, then they had the repast in the kitchen, and there were only like maybe 2 people in there, and it was a large family. So I pulled off my coat and my tie and got the apron on, and I started serving. So this one older lady, she says, "Excuse me, young man." I think I was about maybe 30 something with her. She said, ain't you the preacher that was up there preaching? I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "But child, look like you're doing everything. I never seen no preacher do all that." But when you look at the word minister, it means serve.
Serve.
We're to serve. Okay, so when we serve, that means we have to put ourselves in a position that it's not out there to be seen, but it's to actually help things to move forward and help things to move on, and we have to help people. But too many of us, sometimes I think as pastors, ministers, spiritual leaders, we find ourselves getting so busy in letting people do things for us. And don't get me wrong, there are some folk, I just don't get into, you got to carry my Bible, you got to carry my briefcase, you got to carry, take my coat off, to me, that's too much. I can do that myself. if I'm sick or I'm on a cane or a wheelchair or something, yeah, I need you to get that for me. I'll ask you to do that. But if I'm able-bodied, why, anyway, and that kind of takes me into another. We have these things, these folk called, we call them armor bearers, and that to each his own, whatever. And I can appreciate the fact that there's someone there to assist you if you need assistance, or maybe depending on what's happening, you may not be able to do something here. You say, well, hey, could you go and handle that for me, da 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 da. But not so much so that, you got to have, I've seen some pastors, they got 6 and 7 bodyguards around them, and they got 2 or 3, ladies with carrying this. I'm like, why? And that's just my perspective. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so sometimes we get so big, but now this is the problem. We get so big and we plant ourselves so big in their eyes that when there is a flaw, when there is a failure, the fall is harder now.
Yes.
Because you created all of these, you created this scene where you're the great hoopah, you're the great whatever. Now come to find out, because all people have to do is find out one bad thing about you, and everything that you have done in ministry from way back when up until now is down to nothing. And the first thing they say, oh, I thought he was a preacher. Okay. Oh, well, guess what? He was a preacher, and he still is a preacher. He is still anointed, or she is still anointed to do what God has called him or her to do. It's just that they fail. They fail. And the Bible tells us in Galatians 6 that we're those, whenever one of us fall, that as Christians, period, we're supposed to reach out and strengthen one another. We're supposed to build each other up, reach out and bring them back into the fold and love on them, And so
we don't do that.
No, we don't. We don't. And so we have people. And I've had experience it myself where, my divorce. When I went through my divorce, man, the first thing going to deacons holler, well, if the Bible said if a man can't rule his own house, he can't rule the house of God. Okay. Well, first of all, God was ruling the house. Okay. And just what happened at my house, things were different there than it was at the church. And so there are a lot of churches right now who frown on pastors who have divorce because they feel like we're invincible. We ought to be able to get before God, and God gonna work it out. But this is my thing. I pray to the same God that you pray to, I believe. I have faith, just like you're supposed to have faith. I've been preaching faith to you. You got faith. So you go through a divorce and it's all right. But if I go through a divorce, all of a sudden, God ain't with me, and I'm not anointed.
But it's interesting that when you said that about the divorce, because a lot of people think that some single ministers, whether it be male or female, are not supposed to be over a church. And everything. Then when that person starts dating somebody and it gets serious and they decide to bring that person to the church to introduce them, it's a problem. Oh, you going with the preacher. It's a problem.
Right.
So how do you expect ministers to find that special one without dating?
Right. Exactly. And again, that lends to this thing where people's expectations of ministers are too high. Now, don't get me wrong. I do think that there is a standard that ministers need to have, even according to the Bible. There's a beyond reproach and all of the other characteristics that it speaks of in terms of being a pastor, leader, minister, whatever the case may be, right? However, it does not take away from the fact that as human beings, that we are subject to error just like everybody else is, right? So when we're dating, or whatever, if there is, let's just say that if there's a choir member or if there is a usher or whoever that we decide to have a dating relationship with, I don't see anything ethically wrong with that or whatever. But the first thing people speak of whenever they start talking about, oh, well, if he going with the preacher, they want, him and her having sex. You don't know what they're doing. If you're not following them home, how can you say what they're doing? Then you need to be concerned about the who's in your bed or what hotel room you're going to. I'm just saying, So we have to really be mindful, and and again, as leaders, we're supposed to present ourselves respectful and respectable, shall I say, right? Okay. However, the congregation also needs to understand that this pastor or this minister, he or she has needs, the need of companionship. You know, it ain't even got to be necessarily the need of sex, but just the need of companionship. You know, so just because he's a pastor, I mean, he has to be a eunuch. You know, doesn't mean you have to, go around and not have anything to do with anybody else. He's just supposed to preach and go home and sit there by the candlelight, eat his food that the mothers and the folks bring, if they bring him anything. You know, I'm just saying, you know. Yeah. So yeah. So I think we have to really stop and take a good look at, okay, well, how am I viewing, how does my view of the ministers that I know, how does that line up with what scriptures teach me about us as people and not just as ministers? Okay, because at the end of the day, we're all trying to get to the same heaven. Exactly. And we're serving the same God. We're saved by the same Jesus and covered by the same blood.
Amen.
Okay? One Lord, one faith, one baptism. In the story. Okay. So, whatever it takes for you to get in there, it takes for me to get in there. Okay. And so it just so happens my assignment is different from yours. That's all. My assignment, the person who's the choir member, there is a standard that he or she has to uphold as a choir member and as a Christian. Whoever's the usher, he or she has a standard that they need to adhere to as a leader in the congregation as far as ushering is concerned. Same thing with pastors. Same thing with ministers, but we've got to make sure that we align ourselves with the heart and the love of God toward ministers, such that when we fall, don't leave us down there,
right.
And don't treat us as though one of the things, and I just kind of stopped midstream. One of the things that really concerned me when I went through my divorce or whatever, people would hear rumors and things and all kinds of things going across everywhere. And then, God forbid, if any of it is true, the first thing they want to say, okay, now these are the same people, first of all, that you have baptized, you prayed for, you have gone through you married them, you buried their loved ones, you've done all of this as their pastor. Oh, you were the anointed. Oh, Pastor Collins, he's just a blessing. Yeah, he blessed my soul and he preached that word. He's this and that. One thing that you heard that I did, or one thing that you have even seen me do. Now all of a sudden, all that other stuff back there, I'm no longer this great man of God. I'm no longer this anointed preacher. I'm no longer all of that because this one thing. What if God were to hold anything against us all our days? None of us would be here.
Exactly.
None of us. So why do you want to hold that? Why not reach out to your leader? Something that love that you express toward him or her will build him or her up and help him or her to get back into the fold, to help them to get back on track. When you oppress them and you criticize and ridicule them and come out, they ain't this and they ain't that, well, go look in the mirror, come to find out you ain't all that either.
But they don't see that.
No, they don't want to see it
in their eye. Right.
They don't want to see it.
No.
No. Yeah.
So when you moved and everything, and I know how it was when I moved here, did you find, and you was going to a new church and trying to find your place and all this before you found the home church? Did you find, when you found your home church, did you find people trying to connect you with somebody or hook you up with somebody?
Yeah. Yeah. And I have, I'm one of these kind of people. I'm kind of like I'm a maverick. I'm on my own. I don't like to be pushed into anything, and I'm not going to allow anybody to push me into anything. If anybody knows me, knows that I can be aggressive when I need to be if you take me to that place. So, don't tell me, well, yeah, you need to go on over there, so and so, ain't married and they looking for a husband. They look, okay, all right, let them look. I'm supposed to go over there and say, hi, my name is Norman Collins. Do you want to go out to dinner tonight? Because they said so. Really?
Thank you.
No, I have my own standards for what I know what I'm looking for, and I know what I want. So I don't. A lot of times when people say, I know they're well intentioned many times, whatever, and And so, and oh, okay, well, I appreciate that. And I go on by my business, because I will not allow myself to be governed, by other people's opinions for anything.
Truly, especially trying to connect me with somebody that you feel I need to meet.
Yes.
Or need, anything like that.
Yeah.
We talked about. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying I have a friend of mine who is a minister as well, and his pastor was trying to introduce him to this young lady who was let's just say my friend said he wasn't attracted to her. She wasn't anybody that he wanted or whatever. And he was like, well, Norman, I don't know what to do because I don't want to offend anybody. I said, this is your life.
Right.
If you have to offend somebody in order to get them off your back about something that you don't want, tough cookie. They will get over it. Because I can't. What you like, I may not like.
Right.
So I'm not going to allow you to govern and ruin my life with something that I know is not good for me because that ain't what I want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So just call it what it is.
Yeah. Now, I think we talked about this a little bit earlier, but can you date somebody that's a non-believer, non-churchgoer, or atheist, possibly?
Not date at all. When I said date, I'm talking about, it's not like I couldn't have a conversation with them, maybe, go to dinner and one time, and just have a conversation. And that would be for the sake of ministry. Because the minute I find out that you don't believe in God, I'm already I'm getting in ministry mode at that point. Because right now I'm trying to help you get saved. Okay. Number two, if it's someone that's of another faith, I would actually have a conversation with them just to find out, more about their belief system. Right, and then perhaps later on be able to use that as a tool to help minister to them, But in terms of dating and with the podcast right now, if I date, I'm dating with the intention of long term, the death do us part, because I told them, look, I ain't got as long as I used to have, I got about what $2, almost $2 left out of a $60 bill. $2.20. Okay, so I don't have that. But my point is, I want to be able to, if it's somebody that you're dating, you need to be walking in one accord with them,
right.
In every area of your life, because as a Christian, and I think that's one of the reasons some marriages have not worked. And in some cases, I wouldn't give that a generality, but in some cases they have, where you have people who know when they get with them, they already know. They don't know Jesus. They ain't even trying to live right, none of that. But they say, okay, well, I'm just gonna go ahead and marry them, and when I'm a minister to them, they're gonna get saved, and they're gonna change, And
it
doesn't always.
Some people would rather, okay, I've found this person, we are content, and they just settle.
Yeah.
I'm not for settling.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, you don't, and I don't think we have to. Now, don't get me wrong. I do believe that with relationships, that we should do everything that we can to work at it, to make sure it works within reason. Do everything we can within reason to make it work or whatever. But then, when you gotten to that point where you've done all that you know to do, you have exhausted every resource that you know in terms of counseling and talking, and you've done everything that you need to do, and he or she still refuses to comply with what's needed to make the relationship healthy, then it's time to walk away.
Yeah.
And be content with it. You walk away, with the contentment that, hey, look, I did all I could.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that, I really do think as Christians, I think we all, if we were to employ forgiveness a lot more than we do, but the forgiveness, is not saying that I'm just going to allow you to just treat me any kind of way like you did last time. You're going to keep doing that over and over again. But what it says is, okay, listen, okay, you did that one time, okay, let's work on trying to make that better. You go back and you do it again. Okay, now, so this time, do we need to see about getting some help? Because maybe you're addicted to something or whatever, Then if that person is refusing to get that help, and you've been praying with them, you've been talking with them, you provided them with all the tools necessary to make it happen, and they refuse to let it happen,
let it go. I get it.
Yeah.
Now, on the question that I posed on my personal page, I also posted in 3 other groups.
Okay.
And on yesterday, I went through and I was reading each of the comments, and I think it was at 440 comments.
Wow.
Towards it.
Wow.
You know, some people said yes, some people said no, wouldn't happen, never would happen. Some enjoyed it, some seek ministers out. That's what they want today.
Yes, sir.
I made a few notes here and some of the other ones. Even some ministers said that they would not date other ministers.
Okay.
And some people said that they are too heavy into their religious belief. One person said, I want a spouse at home, not a pastor or a clergy person. And which I definitely understand that.
Yeah, I understand that as well, because there are some people who are not equipped to deal with ministers in the way that ministers need to be dealt with. Okay?
Right.
Sometimes their spiritual walk may not be as strong, you know, whatever. And then, as I said earlier, there are some who've had bad experiences, you know, with ministers. But then what happened is they end up labeling all ministers because of that one experience. Exactly. And that's not fair to all the others. Because if that be the case, I mean, just whatever person you might have dated anyway might have mistreated you. So now you're not going to date any human beings at all because that human being messed you up. Right. You know, or cheated on you, or did whatever the case was. No, I'm not getting a preacher anymore, you know, because they ain't nothing but hoes too. Well, guess what? You know, that preacher had to have a hoe to be a hoe with. Okay. So if you just want to go out that way with that, you know, but don't label all ministers as being
by that one experience.
That is so very unfair, you know. Now, but if that's your preference, as a result of that, to not engage with another man, fine, that's your preference. You know, I'm nobody mad with that. But then again, don't say that about me. Oh, well, yeah, I know how y'all are. And I'll be okay, but I know how y'all are too. Because I dated some people, you are a person. So guess what? I know how you are too.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think people have to be very, very careful in their generalities, you know, when they are you know, talking about different people and some of the things that they like and don't like and would have and wouldn't have, you know, just, you know, calm down, you know, let every experience stand on its own. Question is, what did you learn from that? What did that preacher teach you? If you can't stand not being the center of attention all the time, no, you don't need a preacher, you know? Yeah, you know, if you can't stand other people shaking hands and hug, well, especially now with the COVID or whatever different, but him or her, yeah, you see what I'm saying? If you can't stand them having those, being affectionate, you know, toward other folk or whatever, no, you don't need a preacher.
Don't need it. Because people are going to flock to their pastor to talk, to hug, to shake hands or what have you. They're going to do that. And if you're that jealous person that don't want nobody there, don't do it. This one lady wrote, the woman loses her identity. They become more of the pastor's wife. They can't speak their own mind. They have to do what looks right for him, which, you know, it can go either way, him or her. They have to put up with critical parishioners. They're expected to be the holiest things next to the perfectionist job of the pastor. Yeah.
Well, you know, I think some of that is true, but those are some things that I think parishioners place. Those are expectations that parishioners place upon the wife, I mean the spouse or whatever, right? And I can remember when I was married, the first Sunday, one of the churches that I pastored at the time, the third one, as a matter of fact, the first Sunday I got ready to go to church that Sunday, we had a disagreement about something, and she told me, I said, "You're not going to church today?" I said, she said, "No." I said, "Well, we're a family. We need to go together. This is the first Sunday." Well, the Lord called you to pastor them. He didn't call me to pastor me.
I didn't mean to laugh, but okay.
You know, dude, I laugh about it now, but I was like, I was embarrassed to go to church, you know. And I must admit, I was like, where's Sister Collins? I'm like, well, she's at home this morning, you know. She's not feeling well. In my opinion, she wasn't feeling well. Because she was letting the devil use her. That was my point. But anyway, you know. But you know what? She expressed how she felt. Yeah. You know. But see, the only thing
for you to be honest with me.
Yeah. But this is the other thing. I can remember, you know, spouses can be, they'll say that until it comes anniversary time, and all of a sudden they're there to get all the little gifts and things that the first lady, the first man, whatever you want to call them, get, right? All right. And then also too, I would also let her know, hey, look, you don't have to, they expect her to be in charge of the women's ministry. They expect her to be that. I said, look, if that's not something you don't feel in your heart you called to do, leave it alone.
Do it, right.
I said, but all I need you to do is just support me. I need you to pray for me. We have these kids. You are a mother, you are a wife and a mother first. And there's gonna be some signs that you and there was some signs she wasn't able to come. Because she had things at home that she needed to do with the kids, and sometimes all my kids were athletics, so they'd be going on to different softball, baseball games and stuff on weekends, and so she couldn't be there,
Right.
And then people, well, I'm wondering where First Lady at, she's somewhere being lady, being human, or first man is, whatever the case may be, yeah. So I'm just saying, there are just these expectations that I think people place upon people who are in ministry that so many times are unfair.
True.
Yeah, and it's kind of like with us, it's like darn if we do and darn if we don't. If we do this, you gonna complain about that. If we do that, you're gonna complain about that. So, but then again, when you need us, we're there.
Thank
you. Yeah,
This other comment here, the young lady wrote, because she wouldn't date a minister because they are so heaven bound, they ain't no earthly good, or they are demons straight from the hottest pit of the southwest hell. I'm a minister, and the worst men I've ever dated were preachers and our pastors. The men outside of the church are much more kind, generous, supportive of the ministry God has given me. The males in ministry are competitive and insecure. No matter how supportive and submissive I try to be to them.
But that's applicable. That can be applicable to any man.
Anybody.
Any man. Okay. Furthermore, but then the question is, okay, if you want to label that with all men, if she wants to label that with all the men that she has dated, okay, maybe she's been dating all the wrong men. Okay.
And for her to keep that cycle going, she can change something about herself.
And that's my next point. If you keep going through that with them, then apparently there's something about you that's attracting you to people like that. And then, if you take it and flip it around on the other side, there are a lot of us as male ministers can also say that there are a lot of women ministers who are, and we can label them being headstrong and want to be, this and want to, all because of one experience. No, again, it goes back to stop generalizing everybody because of your experience. Everybody is not like that. True. It's just like talking about racism. Every white person is not a racist. Every Black person is not a criminal. Right. So you can't generalize them like that. Okay, if that has been your experience and you don't want a preacher, don't get one. Okay. But don't sit up and call. Don't call me the same things you call the rest of them. Because I know I'm a kind, gentle. I mean, I treasure. I even bought my wife's clothes. She when it came down time going to church, I bought her hats and dresses and came on and stuff. I cooked. I did. I mean, I could go down that whole line. But I'm just saying, there are those of us out there as men and women of God who are people who love people, and we will do everything we can to try and make it work. Just like I'm sure I would hope that she would do, this particular lady, But at the same time, I think there needs to be some accountability there. You keep going around the same mountain. You need to check your GPS. So
it's too much hard work.
It is.
This young man wrote, ministers act like they know everything, like they are the all in, in all, be all. The buck stop here. No one wants somebody like that.
But again, when you start off by saying ministers are, I would feel better if you said some ministers are ... Okay, because number one, I already know. I don't know everything. That's the reason why I went to school of theology, and I need to go back and get some more right now today. Because I don't know everything, and I'm not. I remember I was talking with. There was this one person I was dating, and they wanted like, well, I don't need you to counsel me, okay? Well, it wasn't my intent to do that, but
Right.
I recognized that apparently I was coming off as that. So I had to pull back, and I started recognizing, what I need to do is just, okay, I listen more and talk less. That was the lesson that I learned behind that.
Been there before.
Yeah.
Been there before.
Yeah,
This young man wrote, "I'm an atheist," and this is what we were talking about, dating outside our faith or what have you.
Yeah.
He said, "I'm an atheist and have dated ministers before. It was the most horrible experience I've ever had to endure in my life. I had to give up too much of myself just to make the relationship work. I had to compromise my own personal belief and philosophies just to have him happy while all the while I was miserable. That's why I refuse to date a minister. I refuse to date people who are too much into their religion, with the exception of those who practice root work and hoodoo. I was raised in a root working family and can deal with that and other related spiritual practices. I don't knock anybody for their belief or what they religious practice or anything is,
Right.
but at least this person knows what they want and what they look for."
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And because of that, I can respect the fact that he has recognized that having a Christian minister as a dating partner or whatever is not something that's good for him, because again, oil and water is not going to mix.
Right.
And he recognized that, but in terms of, him, saying that, he did too much to make him happy. You don't ever surrender and sacrifice yourself to make somebody else happy.
And
okay.
Many times we have done it. Personally, I have done that.
Yeah. Oh, I did too. Yeah, I really did. Yeah, I did. I did it when I was married. Okay. Hence, that's why I wrote the book after my divorce, To Me, From Me, With Love Always. I'm just saying,
Right.
because sometimes we end up giving so much of ourselves, and we're too busy trying to make other people happy when we don't have. And the truth be told, we should not allow ourselves to be made happy by somebody else. Our happiness needs to be intrinsic, based on our relationship, with God, and our loving ourselves. When you learn to love yourself, other people can come and say and do whatever, and they may hurt you, but you'll bounce back, because you realize, hey, look, I'm worth more than I'm worth more than the way they were treating me. Right. And so I'm not going to allow myself to be defined or governed by that. So, and in this case, I would, whether it's with a Christian, whether it's with somebody with voodoo or root or whatever the case may be, if he's not happy with himself, he's not going to ever be happy with anybody else.
Yeah.
Never. He's going to always find himself giving and not getting anything in return, because he's dependent on them to give him something that he should have for himself.
Yeah. The last one that I found interesting, I like this one. I think this one's it. Said, we need love too. Sometimes, and I mean sometimes, we are misjudged. Same thing you have been saying. You just have to separate your personal life from ministry and not push church on the other person just because that's what you're called to do.
Right.
Called to do, not the person in your relationship or dating.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I agree with that. And that brings me to the point too, Brad. Well, when I look back on, my life, with family, while I was in ministry, I realized that there were times that I devoted myself to doing things for the church that I should have done for and toward and with my family. Because I was so busy trying to, because again, you got a congregation of anywhere of 100 to 200 people, or more, and, trying to make sure you meet their needs. And then your kids got baseball, basketball, football games, whatever. You got choir rehearsal, and you got Bible class, and you're trying to get to all of those, and you end up missing some of your kids' games. Or I remember I would go to some of my kids' basketball games, catch the first or maybe the second quarter, and then I would leave and go to Bible class or whatever, and then come back and try and find out how it was or whatever. And it just got to be, and I couldn't make everything all the time, but it literally just kind of almost ran me crazy, But if I had it to do all over again, there are some times when I said yes and I should have said no. And I think that's something that we as ministers have to learn to do. Many times we think we're trying to do a good thing, but the question is it the right thing?
Right.
Are we doing this to please God, or are we doing this to please the people that we serve? And that there's a vast difference between the two. And so with that in mind, I think sometimes when, especially we're dating, we do need to know how to pull back and say, okay, well, yeah, tell well, Deacon so and so, I have something to do on Friday night, so I won't make it to the men's meeting and da 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 da. Okay, but you ain't got to tell them you're going on a date. That ain't their business. And if they find out, right, if they find out you went on a date, oh, he was on a date. You said he had something to do, and we had men's meeting. The preacher was supposed to be there, and he was out on a date. And your point
is other people that can fall under the preacher, the pastor, that can serve in
those capacities,
carry out. Yes.
Yeah, and see, and that's another issue of another function of the pastor. He or she is to train others in his ministry. The associate ministers, deacons, or whoever it may be, department leaders or whatever. Train them. How to do what they do, so that again, I was asked the question. This church was wanting me, looking at me being a pastor. Well, what do you think about going to visit the sick? I said, well, how many deacons y'all got? I think we got 7. Okay, so what we do, we just take the congregation, divide it up amongst the 7, and each deacon has a group that he or she is in charge of or whatever. And if they need someone to come and see them or whatever, then those deacons can go and see them, or there are other members that can go and check on them. All they need is prayer. They need somebody to come there and be with them. And if it's a case where I can go, then I will. But then if you're I've always been a bivocational pastor. So whenever I was working, so I couldn't be there throughout the day, so there had to be somebody else to go and do that. So we have to learn how to delegate, as you were saying. We have to learn how to govern our time such that we can be able to reach out and do the things that we need to do for ourselves and for those significant others that we love. So, I appreciate that. So, yeah. Yeah, because I have, I remember I was this one person I was dating was like, I can't be going to all these other places with you. I said, okay, fine. I understand that. I want
you to go everywhere I go.
Right. That's not it. If you did that, on your own. Matter of fact, it would do you well. Maybe just if you want to stay at home or whatever. Then when I come back, we go out to dinner and I tell you how the day went. It's going to work for me, So I think, we have to strike that balance in there, and don't give, it's like a person who's a workaholic. You give yourself so much to your job, you forget where your personal priorities lie. And if it's somebody that you're dating, where, you're looking at maybe making a life with them, then there are some sacrifices that you're going to have to make for them, and that we have to make, for those that we love. Because they're dating, they're trying to find someone, hopefully looking for the same thing you're looking for, someone to spend their life with. But if while you're dating, you're neglecting them when you don't have to, naturally they're not looking to stay with you because they already know down the road you're gonna keep doing it and they're gonna end up by themselves. And then when you do that, you open up the door for somebody else to come in and fill in spaces that you should have filled in yourself. And then fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
That part right there, okay?
Been there.
Right, okay.
So I have greatly appreciated it, and I thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Topic, and we're gonna have to do another one.
I look forward to it. I hope something has been said that will help somebody. I know there are probably about 900 comments and or whatever, but everything I've said is just it's legit as far as I'm concerned, and I'll say it again if I need to.
I feel you. I'm the same way. So tell us, how can the people get in touch with you?
Okay, well, first of all, you can reach me on my Facebook page. I have a Facebook page called Out of the Norm. I also have one called where it's my personal page, Norman LV Collins, and then I also have a Facebook page for my book, which is To Me, From Me, With Love Always. And I also have a Facebook page for my consulting business, which is actually going to be a foundation in the next couple of months, called H4U2.
Okay.
And I'm on Instagram, I believe at Out of the Norm. And then I have my Twitter page is I think it's Dr. N Collins, I believe it is. I think I can't remember. I have to go back and check again because I'm on it at times, but I just have to look at my phone and find out. Okay, but I'll make sure we put it on the page. And then my website, I'm sorry, is IamNormanCollins.com.
Okay.
Mhm.
And your Twitter is Dr. Norman Collins 14.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
But
just
we'll have it all listed.
okay. I'm almost ashamed that I've forgotten. Anyway,
I understand. I do the same thing. But
Yeah.
like I said, I do appreciate your time and
Yes,
everything. And I hope that someone, even myself, receives something out of that.
Yeah.
Everything, especially being a minister and trying to date with the pandemic going on.
Yeah.
That makes it a little bit harder.
It really does. It really does. I tell you, when this thing is, when it's over with, bro, there's gonna be some shouting going on around here. You hear me? Yes.
I tell you. All right, well, I'm gonna end this on the live stream right
Okay.
now. Okay. Giving is an expression of our love and trust in God. It is not a requirement, just an opportunity to honor Him. Aside from the supernatural results we will see in our own lives, we will also see lives change as we minister the gospel of grace. Be confident that when you sow a seed into this ministry, it is sown in good ground and produce much fruit. Thank you for your support and partnership with Lifeline Ministries. To make a donation, you can go to the link below, and that is paypal.me/LifelineM. Thank you, and may God continue to bless.